What's going on, people? Myke C-Town here with our Hip Hop solo album review, and today I'm going to talk about the new album from Cas One and Figure entitled So Our Egos Don't Kill Us. I wasn't really super familiar with Cas One before this album, so when Sage Francis sent this over to me, I was actually really interested in checking it out. I tend to like everything on Strange Famous so far, so I figured I'd at least dig this a little bit. And it's been a really long time since I've walked into an album totally blind, so, you know, this was kind of exciting. That's not to say Cas One doesn't have a back catalog, because he does. I'm just the ignorant asshole that was not super aware of it. First song on this album, Walking Into a Cult. First thing I noticed is the production. I love Figure's drum sound. He has that live drum sound that producers, I feel like they used to do a lot, but don't seem to do as much anymore. Everyone's so big on that kind of artificial sound replaced shit. And you know, that works really well for some people, but it's overused in my opinion. So this was a nice breath of fresh air. By the time I got halfway through the second track, Staying Gold, I knew I was going to dig this album. When there's no gold left, turn right, go left. A hole in the chest gets filled with an X marks the spot. Keep the spark on hold, look a horse in its mouth, see if them teeth still gold. The production here is dense, and Cas One sounds really, really nice over it. See, this is the kind of shit that got me hooked on indie rap in the late 90s and early 2000s. And that's not to say that this sounds dated at all, because it doesn't in the least bit. It just brings back that excitement of first discovering that there was other shit outside of the generic rap that I was hearing on the radio. Burn It Down, I want to talk about that track because the beat is so dope. It's so b-boy sounding, great drums, great synth sounds, and Cas One's verse is great here. Whole world's crazy and it ain't that funny when you look so poor because your dreams cost money. And of course, B. Dolan lays down a dope verse. This is the kind of production that his style fits perfectly with. One man's punchline is the next man's death wish. The war is really on. Is you with it or against it? Put my body on the line and my mind on the record. Best respect it. And I love the way this track goes out. The way the beat changes up a little bit. Then it has these scratches. The kind of shit that makes you want to pop lock. Even if you can't pop or lock. Speaking of features, I was really excited to see Del on this album. Del's one of my favorite MCs of all time. But he's super hit or miss these days. So when I see his name pop up, I always hope I'm gonna get that funny, clever Del and not the kind of dry, uninteresting sounding Del. And unfortunately, on Lone Wolves, we got the latter. This is a jack move. Don't try and act cool. I'm fitting to slap you. You know you a bitch. Don't ask if that's true. Perfect example of what crack do. I know for a fact that Del can do better than this, but for some reason it just felt like he didn't want to. Like this verse sounded like a really ill-prepared, on-the-spot freestyle, and they gave him such a dope beat to rock over. Like, he could have really freaked this, but he just plain didn't. But that's okay, the song was still cool though, even with that weak verse, because Cas One did his thing. He gave me that funny and clever that I wanted from Del. Brought some friends along to put a boot to your jaw, and we can headbang like a chick with a bob. Dabalina popping on your radar, put a black hole in your motherfucking quasar. But let me tell you, Carnage, the Executioner, he came through and spazzed on this track. He took the show for me. A few things everybody should know when you encounter me. I'm louder and no shrouder of my power to devour each. Hours, towers, a sour browser, doubter till the flower flees. Pound a beat, leave it sound asleep with a flow from outer reaches. It wasn't so much his lyrics that were super dope, but it was the way he delivered them. His flow on this beat was sick. Razorblade Mark was a hilarious song about the kind of super typical but annoying scene kid who's this terrible walking stereotype. You know, the kid that just thinks he's so much cooler than everybody else, from having the stupid tattoos to bragging about suicide and addiction to having gluten allergies to using certain racial slurs and claiming it's just a word. Like, I feel like, yes, every single scene has a Razorblade Mark. Time Bomb was a nice track, a really dark instrumental with some distorted bass, and it also has a great Sage Francis feature. I paid a boatload of taxes, in fact, more than my fair share. The ship will sink before I benefit from Medicare. Gotta donate the blood you squeeze from every penny saved. Either my eyes are going or I've seen better days. And I know I'm talking a lot about the features, but I know during the review for Sadistic's Altars, I mentioned that I was disappointed in POS's feature on Molecules. Well, he more than made up for it on this album with his verse on Never Stop Running. He snapped and displayed why I keep saying he's a totally underrated MC. Like, his flow on this track was bananas, and the way he ends the verse with "My walk of life don't care about your whereabouts at all." Classic POS cynicism. But yo, this album bangs hard. It's head knocker after head knocker throughout. It doesn't even start to slow up a little bit until the last 3 or so songs, starting with The Devil and Jacob Snyder, which is one of my favorite songs on this album. That slow, brooding beat with the church organ sounds in the background and this really sad horn sound in the foreground, and it has some great lyrics from Cas One. Give another round to the out-of-towner. Whiskey sours on 50 hours of no sleep. Beat the streets with long walks on short leashes. With a heart full of leeches and an arm length from Jesus. The production style on this album kind of reminds me a bit of what DJ Abilities was doing on the E&A album. And the fact that Cas One reminds me a bit of a mixture of Idea and Sims from Doomtree, it mixes very well with the instrumentals. And I don't know if these guys are like really close friends or anything, but there's something truly special in the chemistry between these two. Like, they seem like they were made for each other. Like Cas One, I wasn't super familiar with Figure either, but after doing a little bit of my Googles, I see that he's a really highly respected DJ in the electronic EDM scene, so that makes it all the more interesting that he was able to compose such interesting hip-hop beats for this album. And it almost makes sense because the beats, they aren't your prototypical hip-hop beats. Like, they have some breath to them and some interesting individuality to them, and it fits that the influences and the background may come from something a little bit outside of the hip-hop spectrum. Overall, I feel like this is a really enjoyable listen. You know, I don't hear hip-hop albums like this all that often. You know, ones where the participants truly feel connected and the connection feels really organic. So much so that we can almost imagine the relationship being a really close one. Like, nothing sounds phoned in or forced. Like, the beats are meticulous and detailed, and the rhyme patterns and flows, they all weave in and out perfectly. The song topics that Cas One gives you have a nice range from political criticisms to some really introspective theme to even some straight b-boy vibes. But most of all, what we're given here is an aggressive and well put together hip-hop album. Like, I feel like there's not much more to say, man. It's definitely a reminder of why I got into this particular style of hip-hop, and it's nice to have reassurance that some people like Cas One and Figure are still creating it. So if you've heard this album, let me know what you think in the comment section down there. If you've not heard this album, I have a link in the description section down there. So go check it out and then come back and let me know what you thought about it. Alright, as usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you. Please don't die, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright, peace, bitches.